same group is PSG versus Dortmund. I have a feeling we'll be spending a lot of time in this group over the next 6 weeks, and we'll make no apologies for it. We'll take a look at the betting. PSG 1.84. So many subplots to this game. Dortmund 4.4. Draw is available at 4.2. Both teams to score yes is 1.59 and no is 2.52. The Asian handicap line sees Dortmund get a 3/4 of a goal head start, and the goal line for this one is 3.5. So, Mark, we might go back to you here. And Miguel sort of touched on Dortmund's situation. You like what PSG have been doing, but like obviously Mbappe got 2 goals the weekend, but it ended in defeat. So I guess it's going to take time for this newish team in PSG to sort of get going. So how do you see them in the first game at home to a Dortmund side?
Yeah, they'll definitely be growing pains, that's for sure. And Friday night's defeat to Nice probably caused a bit of laughter from around Europe. But I think they'll be better for it. There's a couple of key absentees going into that game because of the international break. Marquinhos and Ugarte travelled back late from international duty, so weren't considered for selection. And they'll be back and fit and available to play in this match, which will bolster them defensively, which they're already pretty strong with Skriniar and Hakimi and Luis Hernandez. But going forward, the likes of Mbappe, Dembele, Kolo Muani, Ramos, Asensio, quite a frightening forward line to attack a Dortmund defence, which has looked dreadful at best, really, so far this season. I felt they got out of jail a bit at the weekend. Obviously, we opposed them on the podcast with Freiburg plus half a goal. All was looking quite nice in that regard, and then a red card changed the complexion of that game. And Dortmund in the first half conjured up an XG total of 0.42. Pretty pitiful stuff. Didn't do a huge amount, and finally sort of seized the initiative when they got 11 against 10 and scored a couple of late goals, but it wasn't convincing at all. And neither has their season been at all. They played some pretty mediocre opposition in the Bundesliga, scraped home against Cologne, failed to win away at Bochum, coughed up a 2-0 lead at home to Heidenheim, and defensively on all occasions they've looked all at sea at the best of times. So individually there's not too much wrong with the players at Dortmund's disposal, but collectively defensively they've just looked a shambles, really. And I said last week on the main show that just feels like there's a bit of a knock-on psychologically to that title, the way in which they lost the title on the final day of the season, plus Bellingham's departure as well. So quite happy to oppose them. PSG traditionally super strong at the Parc des Princes in the Champions League, especially in the group stage. I think they've got too much attacking firepower here for Dortmund. So you can back them at nice price just to win the game at 183, but I'm going to boost it to evens by backing in over 1.5 goals alongside that, which just means any correct score bar 1-0 gets you paid at evens for PSG to beat Dortmund. We know Dortmund's matches are really dull. They can contribute, of course, but PSG scored 2 goals in this game. They win it for me, and I think the evens is a nice opportunity to get them on side.
Okay, PSG and over 1.5 goals. Even money currently on Matchbook at the selection for Mark. Miguel, you sort of touched on problems with Dortmund. Mark's alluded to them there. It's a fascinating game for those reasons we already talked about, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's actually quite interesting what Mark touched on as well. PSG, after obviously over a decade of this project being the circus that it has been, that a lot of kind of like their former managers have even said, they're almost kind of trying to flip now and become a Dortmund, that kind of emphasis on youth and a hard running team. Obviously, Luis Enrique has been appointed for, and obviously some of this has been to satisfy Mbappe, who's going to leave anyway. Even he's supposed to be central to the project. And I mean, in terms of, I suppose, on a purely football basis, it's the right step for PSG. But obviously, it's going to, after so long being something completely different, it will take some adaptation. Dortmund on the other side, I'm actually, from some of the things I heard from Germany over the past 2 weeks, as well as apparently there's been some sounding out of other potential managers. I'm surprised there hasn't been more change there. But all of that, I think, and obviously from Dortmund's point of view as well, and especially you can see from his performances for Real Madrid already, they're undeniably missing Bellingham, maybe more than people would have anticipated for someone so young. And I think all that feeds in, especially with the Mbappe factor. And I think one of the guiding factors for the next decade almost. I know both Haaland and Mbappe have played down the rivalry, but I mean, they're still going to be two of the players that define European football, especially Mbappe, from the sense that, from speaking to people who kind of know him, he was apparently livid after the World Cup final because he knew this was his only chance to emulate Pele. And because of that, he now realizes how important the Champions League is to his own. Like people say he's like Cristiano Ronaldo in that regard, and how he's so obsessed with his place in the game and can be so driven in that regard. And I think on a Champions League match night like this, changes the club, a home game, I think his performance will actually have a disproportionate effect there, even for someone as good as Mbappe. And I actually expect this to be quite. I think this will be high scoring, and you can see it from the weekend where PSG lost in a 5-goal game. I would probably expect them to win this, but I didn't quite have the confidence to go with it. So I'm going for over 3.5, which I actually think is relatively conservative given the potential here.
Okay, 2.44 the price on over 3.5 goals. Miguel Delaney's over 3.5 have returned to the podcast, which is great to see. Adrian gave it a shout out a few weeks ago on the Weekend Football podcast. Adrian, you're somewhere in the middle between Mark and Miguel here.
I've missed those. I've missed those big shouts for goals, Miguel. It's good to have them back. I'd echo most of what everyone said. Just a few numbers. Dortmund away in the Champions League always concede 10 times in a row. 5 of those 10 they've conceded multiple goals. So there's every chance that they let in at least 2 in this game, in my opinion. But they can score goals, can't they? Since losing to Chelsea. I think Miguel was at that, wasn't he? In March, away from home. They've scored 22 goals in 9 away games in all comps. So they're very good wherever they go at actually finding the back of the net, Dortmund. So there you've got a couple of goals already. I do fancy PSG. Mbappe's obviously got doubles in his last 3 matches. He's on fire. I think they're the better team. PSG win for sure, in my opinion, and I can see over 2.5 goals, and the price is nice, 2.46. Obviously, you're relying on 3 goals happening, but yeah, I think it will.
Okay, PSG over 2.5, 2.46. Miguel's going for over 3.5, 2.44. We're locking the safer one here. PSG over 1.5, 2.00. Even money currently on Matchbook, but those 3 guys' selections and all selections put on the podcast today will be available on Matchbook Insights. That's insights.matchbook.com.